She hummed her mother's lullaby in the temple for fun. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The vast, cavernous temple of Zendora loomed around Eliza Scott, its ancient stone walls etched with symbols no human had fully deciphered. She was the youngest xenoarchaeologist on the expedition, sent to study the remnants of a civilization that had vanished millennia before humans reached the stars. The exploration team had been on Zendora for 3 weeks, meticulously documenting every corner of the massive temple complex. Most of the senior researchers were back at the base camp, arguing over the meaning of some newly discovered inscriptions. Eliza had seized the opportunity to slip away, eager for a moment of solitude in the temple's central chamber. The chamber was unlike any other in the complex. While most of the temple was built of a dull, gray stone, this massive circular room sparkled with an iridescent material that caught what little light filtered through the high windows. And at even intervals around the chamber stood 12 colossal figures, each over 15 feet tall. The sleeping guardians, as the team had dubbed them, were made of the same strange material as the walls. Each figure appeared to be in a different pose of repose, their features smooth and featureless except for what might have been closed eyes. "Just you and me today," Eliza said to the silent chamber. Her voice echoed slightly, seeming to linger in the air longer than it should have. The young researcher walked slowly around the perimeter of the room, carefully avoiding the symbols inscribed on the floor. Dr. Whitaker, the expedition leader, had strict rules about not disturbing anything until it had been thoroughly documented. But they'd already mapped this chamber twice, and Eliza knew exactly where to step. As she circled the room for the 3rd time, a strange melancholy settled over her. Something about this place reminded her of home, of Earth, which she hadn't seen in over 2 years. She thought of her mother, who had passed away just months before Eliza had been selected for the expedition. Almost without thinking, she began to hum. It was an old lullaby her mother had sung to her as a child, a gentle melody with no words that had always brought her comfort. The tune echoed softly in the chamber, the acoustics somehow making it sound fuller, richer. Eliza closed her eyes as she hummed, letting the familiar melody wash over her. For a moment, she could almost feel her mother's presence, could almost smell the lavender perfume she'd always worn. The sound of stone grinding against stone snapped her eyes open. At first, she couldn't tell what had changed. The chamber looked the same. The sparkling walls, the mysterious floor symbols, the 12 sleeping guardians. Except they weren't sleeping anymore. Every single one of the massive figures had shifted. Where before they had been in positions of rest, they now stood at attention, their featureless faces turned toward her. Their eyes, which had previously been nothing more than smooth depressions, were now open, revealing orbs of swirling light that fixed on her with undeniable focus. Eliza froze, her heart hammering in her chest. The lullaby died on her lips as terror took hold. "Oh God," she whispered. "What did I do?" The guardians remained motionless, but their attention was unmistakable. Eliza reached slowly for her comm unit, not daring to make any sudden movements. "Base camp," she said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is Scott. I'm in the central chamber. Something's happening." Static crackled from the device, but no response came. One of the guardians, the largest one, directly across from where she stood, took a step forward. The sound of its foot striking the stone floor echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. Eliza flinched but held her ground. Running seemed like a terrible idea. Besides, if these things wanted to harm her, she doubted she could outpace them. "I apologize if I've disturbed you," she said, addressing the guardian that had moved. "I'm Eliza Scott from Earth. We're here to study your temple, to learn about your civilization." The guardian tilted its head slightly, as if considering her words. Then, to her astonishment, it spoke. "Earthchild," it said, its voice a deep rumble that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You have sung the awakening song." Eliza blinked. "The awakening song? No, I was just humming a lullaby. A song my mother used to sing." Another guardian stepped forward. The melody of creation knows no boundaries of time or space. It said, its voice lighter than the first. It has existed since the dawn of consciousness. That your mother knew it is interesting. A third guardian moved, creating a triangle of the massive figures around her. No human has entered this chamber and known the song. Not in all the cycles we have slumbered. Eliza's scientific mind began to push through her fear. How long have you been slumbering? The first guardian answered, since before your kind learned to forge metal. Since before your ancestors left the cradle of their evolution. Millions of years, Eliza whispered, awestruck. You've been waiting here for millions of years. Waiting and watching, said the second guardian. The song signals the time of awakening, when a species has reached the threshold of understanding. But I don't understand, Eliza said. I'm just an archaeologist. The song is just something personal, something from my childhood. The third guardian moved closer, its glowing eyes pulsing slightly. Yet you knew it. Somewhere in your genetic memory, in the collective unconscious of your species, the knowledge was preserved. The builders encoded the song into the very fabric of sentient life, the first guardian explained. Those who evolve to a certain point of consciousness will discover it, often believing it to be their own creation. When it is sung within the chamber of awakening, we rise. And why do you rise? Eliza asked, a flutter of apprehension returning. What happens now? The guardians exchanged glances, or at least, their glowing eyes turned toward each other in what Eliza interpreted as communication. Now, said the first guardian, the trial begins. Before Eliza could ask what that meant, the floor beneath her feet began to glow. The symbols she had been so careful to avoid were now illuminated with a soft blue light that grew steadily brighter. What trial? What are you testing? She asked, her voice rising with panic as the light intensified. Not testing, the second guardian corrected. Offering. The knowledge of the builders is not freely given, explained the third. It must be earned through understanding, through wisdom. The light from the floor's symbols was now almost blinding, casting Eliza's shadow in 12 different directions. I don't think I'm qualified for this, she protested. I should get the rest of my team. There are people much more knowledgeable than me. You sang the song. The first guardian interrupted, its voice firm. You stand in the chamber. The trial is yours alone. The light suddenly contracted, forming a tight beam that shot upward through the center of the room. Within the beam, images began to form, stars, planets, galaxies, all spinning and shifting in a cosmic dance. Behold the knowledge, intoned all 12 guardians in unison, their voices merging into a harmonious chord that resonated through Eliza's very bones. Behold the wisdom of the builders. Eliza found herself drawn toward the column of light. Despite her fear, curiosity pulled at her. The same curiosity that had led her to become an archaeologist, to join the expedition to Zendora, to explore this temple alone while her colleagues argued over translations. As she approached the light, the images within it became clearer. She could see star systems she recognized, including Sol, Earth's sun, alongside countless others. And as she watched, lines began to form between certain stars, creating a vast network that spanned the galaxy. The Builder Network, said the first guardian, moving to stand beside her. Pathways between stars, folded space. What your scientists call wormholes, though your understanding is incomplete. Eliza stared at the display, mesmerized. Are you saying there's a network of wormholes connecting star systems across the galaxy? Built by your people? By the builders, corrected the second guardian. We are but their servants, left to guard their legacy until worthy inheritors emerge. And you think humans might be these inheritors? Eliza asked. That, said the third guardian, is what the trial will determine. The column of light shifted, the galactic map dissolving into new images, strange machines, incredible technologies, concepts that Eliza's mind struggled to comprehend. The legacy includes knowledge, the first guardian explained. Knowledge of matter, energy, space, and time. Knowledge your species has glimpsed, but not mastered. If humanity passes the trial, said the second guardian, this knowledge becomes yours. The network is open to you. The stars become your playground. And if we fail? Eliza asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. The third guardian's eyes dimmed slightly. Then memory of this encounter is erased. The temple crumbles to dust. The legacy remains hidden until another species finds this world and sings the song. Eliza swallowed hard. The weight of responsibility suddenly felt crushing. That's not a decision I should make alone. I'm just one person. I can't represent all of humanity. Yet you do, the first guardian said simply. In this moment, you are humanity's voice. Its heart, its soul. The builders designed the trial thus, added the second guardian. One individual, one moment of choice. Eliza's mind raced. This was simultaneously the most exciting and most terrifying moment of her life. The archaeological discovery of the millennium was unfolding around her, and she alone was witness to it. What exactly is this trial? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. What do I need to do? The guardians again exchanged their strange, eyeless glances. You must journey, said the first guardian, within and without. A journey of understanding, elaborated the second. To see as the builders saw, to know as they knew, to determine if humanity is ready for what was left behind, concluded the third. Eliza took a deep breath. I don't really have a choice, do I? There is always choice, the first guardian said, sounding almost gentle despite its imposing presence. You may leave now, return to your people. We would return to our slumber. The temple would remain as you found it. But the opportunity would be lost, said the second guardian. For how long? Eliza asked. Until another finds this place. Until another sings the song. It could be millennia. It could be never. Eliza looked at the column of light, at the tantalizing glimpses of knowledge it contained. Knowledge that could transform human civilization, that could open up the galaxy to exploration and settlement. Knowledge that her mother, who had encouraged her love of archaeology from childhood, would have given anything to see. I'll do it, she said firmly. I accept the trial. The guardians nodded in unison, a gesture so human it briefly startled her. Then it begins, said the first guardian, and raised one massive hand. The column of light expanded suddenly, enveloping Eliza before she could react. She felt a sensation like falling, like flying, like being torn apart and reassembled all at once. The chamber, the guardians, Zendora itself, all vanished in a blaze of light. When the light faded, Eliza found herself somewhere, or someone else entirely. She stood on a platform overlooking a vast city unlike any she had seen before. Spires of crystal and metal rose to impossible heights, their surfaces gleaming with the same iridescent material as the temple chamber. Aircraft of strange design flitted between the towers, following pathways of light that crisscrossed the sky. And the inhabitants, they were clearly not human. Tall, slender beings moved through the streets and skyways, their bodies seeming to shift between solid matter and pure energy with each step. They glowed from within with the same light she had seen in the guardian's eyes. The builders, she whispered in awe, as they were at the height of their civilization, confirmed a voice behind her. Eliza turned to find one of the guardians standing there, or rather, a smaller version, closer to human size. Its features were more defined now, almost humanoid, with a mouth, nose, and those same glowing eyes. Am I really here? She asked. In the past. The guardian made a gesture that wasn't quite a nod, wasn't quite a shrug. You are experiencing a memory preserved within the chamber. It is real in the sense that it truly happened. It is unreal in that you cannot change what you see. I'm just an observer then. For now, the guardian said. Watch. Learn. As if responding to these words, the scene shifted. The beautiful city blurred and reformed as a scientific facility of some kind. Builder scientists moved around complex equipment, their energy forms pulsing with excitement. The discovery of the network, the guardian narrated. The realization that space could be folded, that distances between stars could be traversed in moments rather than lifetimes. The scene shifted again. Now Eliza watched as the builders constructed massive ring-shaped devices in space. Wormhole generators, she realized. She saw the first tentative journeys to nearby stars, then bolder explorations as confidence in the technology grew. She witnessed the discovery of other life, other civilizations, some primitive, some advanced, all different from the builders themselves. They explored the galaxy for thousands of years. The Guardian continued as images flowed around them. They learned, they grew, they evolved. And eventually, they transcended. The scenes now showed builders transforming, their partly physical forms becoming pure energy, pure consciousness. They departed their cities, their worlds, moving to another plane of existence beyond what Eliza could comprehend. They left, she said. They abandoned everything they built. Not abandoned, the Guardian corrected. Bequeathed. They knew other species would eventually rise, would reach for the stars as they had done. They left their knowledge, their technology, their network, hidden but discoverable by those who were ready. And the Guardians? You were created to protect this legacy. To guard it, the Guardian agreed. To test those who would claim it. To ensure it passed to worthy inheritors. The scene shifted once more, and now Eliza saw the temple being constructed. Saw the Guardians being created, taking their positions in the chamber. Saw the last of the builders encoding the awakening song into the genetic memory of promising species across the galaxy, including, she realized with a shock, early hominids on Earth. The song has existed in human subconscious for over 1 million years, the Guardian said, noting her surprise. Passed from generation to generation, emerging in different forms, different cultures, but always recognizable to those who know how to listen. And my mother's lullaby. One expression of the song, yes. Humanity has known the melody throughout its evolution. It appears in your oldest music, your earliest recorded songs. Eliza felt a wave of emotion, wonder, disbelief, and a strange sense of connection to her mother that transcended death. The lullaby that had comforted her as a child was part of something unimaginably ancient and profound. I still don't understand, she said after a moment. What is the actual trial? What am I being tested on? The Guardian's glowing eyes studied her. The trial has already begun, Earthchild. Every reaction, every question, every thought, all are part of the assessment. That's not very reassuring, Eliza said with a nervous laugh. It was not meant to be. The Guardian gestured, and their surroundings changed again. They stood now in what appeared to be a control center of some kind. Builder operators moved around a central holographic display that showed the galactic network in all its complexity. The network still exists, the Guardian said. Dormant but intact. The wormhole generators orbiting hundreds of stars across the galaxy, waiting to be reactivated. Including our solar system? Eliza asked. Yes. Hidden in the shadows, powered down to avoid detection by your primitive instruments. But there. Eliza's mind raced with the implications. Instant travel between star systems would transform humanity's future. No more generation ships, no more decades-long journeys to reach even the nearest habitable worlds. The entire galaxy would be accessible. With this technology, she said slowly, humanity could spread throughout the galaxy in just a few generations. Yes, the Guardian agreed. But would that be wise? And there it was. The real question behind the trial. Not whether humans could use the technology, but whether they should. You're asking if humanity is mature enough for this kind of power, Eliza said. If we can be trusted not to use it destructively. The question at the heart of every trial, the Guardian confirmed. The builders left their legacy for those who would use it responsibly. For those who would explore rather than conquer, learn rather than destroy. Eliza felt a knot form in her stomach. As a scientist, as an explorer, the prospect of accessing the network was intoxicating. But she couldn't ignore humanity's darker impulses, its history of using new technologies for warfare and domination. I can't guarantee that humans would always use this technology wisely, she admitted. We're complicated. We have the capacity for great compassion and great cruelty, for brilliance and for stupidity. Like all sentient species, the Guardian said, sounding almost approving of her honesty. But Eliza continued, gathering her thoughts. I believe we're ready for the responsibility. We've learned from our mistakes. We've developed ethical frameworks for scientific advancement. And most importantly, we're curious. We want to understand the universe, not just control it. The Guardian was silent for a long moment, its glowing eyes unreadable. There is more to show you, it said finally. More for you to understand before judgment is rendered. The scene around them dissolved, and Eliza found herself falling once more into the unknown. The next vision took shape around her, and Eliza gasped. She was standing on what appeared to be the surface of Earth, but not the Earth she knew. Cities lay in ruins, the landscape scarred by what could only have been massive weapons. The sky was dark with ash and smoke. What is this? She demanded, turning to the Guardian. What happened? One possible future, the Guardian replied calmly. A future where the network was open to humanity before your species was ready. Where the power to reach the stars instantly led not to peaceful exploration, but to competition, militarization, and eventually, this. Eliza watched in horror as the scene shifted to show colonies on other worlds suffering similar fates. Human factions fighting over control of network nodes, using the technology to spread conflict rather than cooperation across the stars. This is just one potential outcome, she protested. You can't judge us based on a possibility. No, agreed the Guardian. Which is why there are other visions to consider. The apocalyptic landscape faded, replaced by a very different Earth. Here, the cities were beautiful, integrated harmoniously with nature. The technology was clearly advanced, but used with restraint and wisdom. In orbit, Eliza could see the distinctive ring shape of an activated wormhole generator, with ships passing through to and from other star systems. Another possibility, the Guardian said, a future where humanity used the network as it was intended, to explore, to learn, to grow, where the legacy of the builders helped your species mature rather than destroy itself. More visions followed, some hopeful, some cautionary, all possible futures stemming from the discovery of the network. Eliza watched humans spreading peacefully to new worlds, establishing contact with other sentient species, creating a galactic community that echoed what the builders had begun millions of years earlier. But she also saw darker outcomes. Human expansion leading to conflict with other species, exploitation of pristine worlds, the same patterns of colonization and dominance that had marked much of Earth's history. I understand what you're showing me, Eliza said eventually, as the visions faded to a neutral space of swirling light. The network is neither good nor bad in itself. It's how we would use it that matters. Yes, the Guardian said, and that is what you must judge. Not just what humanity is now, but what it could become, for better or worse, with this knowledge. Eliza took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. How could she possibly make this judgment on behalf of her entire species? Yet the alternative, walking away, leaving the temple and its secrets buried for perhaps another 1,000,000 years, seemed equally impossible. I need to see one more thing, she said suddenly, struck by a thought. You've shown me possible futures based on humanity gaining access to the network. But what about the future if we don't? If I fail this trial and the knowledge remains hidden? The Guardian tilted its head, that almost human gesture that suggested consideration. A fair request, it said after a moment. Observe. New visions formed around her, humanity continuing its slow, painstaking expansion to the stars using conventional propulsion. Generation ships taking centuries to reach nearby systems. Colonies establishing themselves in isolation, evolving separately due to the vast distances and time lags involved. Some thriving, others failing. She saw Earth itself changing, facing environmental challenges, political upheavals, the normal course of civilizational evolution, sometimes progressing, sometimes regressing. She saw human ingenuity creating new technologies, but never quite bridging the vast gulfs between stars. And she saw other species elsewhere in the galaxy finding Zendora, finding the temple, facing their own trials. Some succeeding where humanity had failed, gaining access to the network and spreading across the stars while humans remained confined to their small corner of the galaxy. We would survive, Eliza observed. We would continue to explore, to learn, just more slowly, more painfully. Yes, the Guardian confirmed. Humanity would not end without the network, but its trajectory would be different. Eliza closed her eyes, processing everything she had seen. When she opened them again, she found herself back in the temple chamber on Zendora, the 12 guardians arranged in a circle around her. The column of light still pulsed at the center of the room, but it seemed to be waiting now, waiting for her decision. "Have you reached a conclusion, Earthchild?" asked the first guardian, its voice resonating through the chamber. Eliza looked up at the massive figures, then at the light column with its tantalizing glimpses of builder knowledge. "I have," she said, and was surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "I believe humanity is ready for the legacy of the builders. Not because we're perfect, we're far from it, but because we're aware of our imperfections. We question ourselves. We learn from our mistakes." She took a step toward the column of light. "We've made terrible errors throughout our history," she continued. "We've hurt each other in our world. But we've also created art, music, literature. We've developed sciences to understand the universe. We've dreamed of the stars for as long as we've been human." Another step forward. "The network would change us. Any technology this powerful would. But I believe it would change us for the better. It would unite us in exploration, in discovery. It would give us perspective on our place in the cosmos." A final step brought her to the edge of the light. "Most importantly," she concluded, "we're ready to learn. From the builders, from other species we might encounter, from the universe itself. And that, I think, is what the builders would have wanted from their inheritors." The guardians were silent for a long moment. Then, as one, they bowed their massive heads. "The judgment is accepted," the first guardian announced. "Humanity will be given access to the legacy of the builders. The network will be revealed." Relief flooded through Eliza, followed immediately by anxiety. "What happens now?" "Now," said the second guardian, "the knowledge must be transferred. Are you prepared to receive it?" Eliza hesitated. "Will I survive the process?" "Your physical form will remain intact," the third guardian assured her. "But your mind will be changed, expanded. You will understand what few humans have ever comprehended." Eliza swallowed hard, then squared her shoulders. "I'm ready." "Then step into the light," the first guardian instructed, "and sing the song once more." Eliza closed her eyes, summoning the memory of her mother's lullaby. As the melody rose in her throat, she stepped forward into the column of light. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever experienced, neither pain nor pleasure, but a rush of information so intense it threatened to overwhelm her consciousness. Images, concepts, mathematics, physics, engineering principles, all flooding into her mind faster than she could process them. She felt herself falling, expanding, becoming something more than what she had been. The lullaby continued to flow from her lips, anchoring her to her humanity even as her understanding transcended human limitations. And then, abruptly, it was over. The light vanished. Eliza found herself on her knees in the center of the chamber, gasping for breath. Her mind buzzed with new knowledge, new understanding that she knew would take years to fully integrate. The guardians stood around her, but they were changed. Their massive forms were translucent now, fading gradually like mist in morning sunlight. "What's happening to you?" Eliza asked, struggling to her feet. "Our purpose is fulfilled," the first guardian said, its voice already distant. "The legacy has been passed. The inheritors have been found. We return to dormancy," said the second guardian, "until we are needed again. The knowledge is now yours," added the third guardian. "Use it wisely, Earthchild." "Wait," Eliza called as the figures grew more transparent. "There's so much I don't understand yet. You understand more than you realize." the first guardian said. And what you do not yet comprehend will become clear in time. Remember the song, said the second guardian as it faded from view. It will guide you when needed. And remember, said the third guardian, now barely visible, that with great knowledge comes great responsibility. The stars await you, Eliza Scott of Earth. Make the builders proud. With those words, the guardians vanished completely. The chamber remained, its walls still sparkling with that strange iridescent material, but the massive figures were gone. Eliza stood alone, her mind still reeling from the information transfer. As she tried to gather her thoughts, her comm unit suddenly crackled to life. Scott, Eliza, do you copy? It was Dr. Whitaker's voice, tense with concern. We've been trying to reach you for hours. Where are you? Eliza raised the unit slowly. I'm in the central chamber, Dr. Whitaker. And I think you should get down here. All of you. What's happened? Are you all right? Eliza looked around the empty chamber, at the spot where the column of light had been. She could feel the knowledge the builders had left, organizing itself in her mind, becoming accessible. She knew where to find the network node in Earth's solar system. She knew how to activate it. She knew how to build the technology that would allow humanity to access the stars. I'm fine, she said, a smile spreading across her face. Better than fine. I just made first contact. There was stunned silence on the other end of the comm, then Whitaker's voice returned, barely containing his excitement. Don't move. We're coming to you. As she waited for her colleagues to arrive, Eliza found herself humming again, her mother's lullaby, the awakening song. But now she understood its true meaning, its true purpose. It wasn't a song to put children to sleep. It was a song to wake up the universe. A song to bring humanity home to the stars. The next 24 hours passed in a blur for Eliza. The research team had rushed to the central chamber, their expressions shifting from concern to awe as she recounted what had happened. Dr. Whitaker had listened with growing excitement, his skepticism melting away as Eliza demonstrated knowledge of the temple that none of them possessed. The inscriptions in the Eastern Corridor, she had explained, aren't religious texts. They're navigational charts for the network. Star coordinates. Jump points. She'd led them to sections of the temple they hadn't yet explored, revealing hidden chambers and technology that had been invisible to their previous scans. The team followed her in stunned silence, recording everything, asking questions that she answered with a confidence that surprised even herself. But now, as she sat alone in her quarters at the base camp, Eliza felt the weight of what had happened settling fully upon her. She stared at the equations she'd been scribbling for hours, calculations for locating the dormant wormhole generator hidden at the edge of Earth's solar system. The knowledge flowed through her like water, natural yet overwhelming. A knock at her door broke her concentration. Come in, she called, not looking up from her notes. Dr. Whitaker entered, his lined face a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. At 62, he was the most respected xenoarchaeologist in the field, with 4 decades of research behind him. Yet now he looked at Eliza, barely 30 and the junior member of the expedition, with something approaching reverence. The transport leaves in an hour, he said. Command wants us back on Earth as soon as possible. They're assembling a team to review your findings. Eliza nodded, gathering her notes. Have you told them everything? Whitaker hesitated. I've told them what we observed. The chambers you revealed, the technology we've documented. But the rest. He gestured to her notes. The knowledge that was transferred to you. The network. I thought perhaps that should come directly from you. You're protecting me, Eliza said with a small smile. I'm being cautious, Whitaker corrected. This is potentially the most significant discovery in human history. It will have implications. Political, military, economic. There will be factions who will want to control it. I know, Eliza said quietly. The Guardians showed me possible futures. Not all of them were good. Whitaker sat across from her, his expression grave. You understand what's at stake, then? This isn't just an archaeological find. This is something that could change the course of human civilization. That's exactly why we can't keep it secret, Eliza said firmly. This knowledge doesn't belong to any one nation or corporation. It belongs to all of humanity. That's what the builders intended. And you believe we're ready for it? Whitaker asked, studying her face. Truly ready? Eliza looked down at her notes, at the elegant equations that described how to fold space itself. I told the Guardians we were. I have to believe that. Whitaker nodded slowly. Then we'll present this together. United front. He stood, moving toward the door. 1 hour, Dr. Scott. Don't be late. As the door closed behind him, Eliza returned to her notes, to the knowledge that still sorted and organized itself in her mind. One equation in particular drew her attention, a simple formula that described the relationship between consciousness and the fabric of space-time. It was beautiful in its elegance, profound in its implications. Without thinking, she began to hum her mother's lullaby again. The familiar melody brought comfort, but now it also triggered connections in her mind, pathways to the builder knowledge that had been transferred to her. It was as if the song itself was a key, unlocking deeper understanding with each note. By the time she boarded the transport with the rest of the team, Eliza had filled 3 notebooks with calculations, diagrams, and specifications. The basics of builder technology, translated into terms humans could understand and, eventually, replicate. It wasn't the complete knowledge of the builders that would take lifetimes to fully comprehend, but it was enough to begin. Enough to find the network node and activate it. Enough to change everything. The journey back to Earth took 6 weeks at maximum speed. For Eliza, it was 6 weeks of continuous work, of organizing the knowledge in her mind and transferring it to a form others could use. The rest of the team gave her space, recognizing that something profound had happened to their colleague. Only Whitaker regularly checked on her, bringing food when she forgot to eat, listening as she tried to explain concepts that stretched the boundaries of human science. It's like they knew exactly how much we could handle, she told him one evening as they shared a meal in the ship's small common area. The knowledge they transferred, it's advanced, but not so far beyond us that we can't understand it. It's as if they calculated precisely where human science would be at this point in our development. Perhaps they did, Whitaker suggested. If they were as advanced as you say, they might have been able to predict our evolution as a species, our technological development. Eliza nodded, pushing her food around her plate. There's something else. Something I haven't told you. She glanced around to ensure they were alone, then lowered her voice. I don't think we're the first species they've done this with. In the visions they showed me, I saw others, other civilizations that found their temples, sang the song, passed the trial. Whitaker's eyes widened. You mean there are other species out there with this technology? Using the network? I think so, Eliza said. Which means once we activate our node, once we join the network, we won't be alone out there. The implications hung between them, unspoken but profound. Humanity wouldn't just be gaining access to the stars. They would be joining a community of species who had already passed their own trials, who had already been deemed worthy of the Builder's legacy. Are we ready for that? Whitaker asked softly, echoing his earlier question. We have to be, Eliza replied. Because ready or not, it's coming. As the transport approached Earth orbit, Eliza stood at the viewport, watching her home planet grow larger. From here, it looked peaceful, serene, blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land masses. No sign of the conflicts, the divisions, the challenges that humanity still struggled with. But also no sign of the potential, the creativity, the resilience that she believed made humans worthy of the stars. We'll get it right, she whispered to herself, her hand pressed against the cool glass. We have to. The reception waiting for them at Earth Station 1 was larger than Eliza had anticipated. Not just the usual supervisors from the Archaeological Survey Department, but representatives from the United Earth Government, the Space Exploration Authority, and, most concerning to Eliza, the Defense Coalition. As they disembarked, Whitaker moved protectively to her side. Remember, he murmured, we present a united front. The knowledge belongs to humanity, not to any faction. Eliza nodded, clutching her notebooks to her chest. A woman in the crisp blue uniform of the UEG stepped forward, hand extended. Dr. Scott, Dr. Whitaker. I'm Director Chun of the Advanced Technologies Division. On behalf of the United Earth Government, welcome home. Eliza shook her hand, noting the firm grip, the calculating eyes. Thank you, Director. We've prepared a debriefing room. Chun continued, gesturing toward a corridor. If you'll follow me, your team can be processed through regular channels. She added to Whitaker, clearly expecting Eliza to come alone. Dr. Whitaker comes with me, Eliza said firmly. As expedition leader, he should be present for all discussions regarding our findings. Chin's smile tightened slightly, but she nodded. Of course. This way, please. The debriefing room turned out to be more like a conference hall. At least 30 people were seated around a massive table, all rising as Eliza and Whitaker entered. Representatives from various government departments, scientific institutions, and military branches, Eliza guessed, based on their attire and the insignia some wore. Director Chun led them to seats at the head of the table. Doctors, you've made what appears to be an extraordinary discovery. We're eager to hear the details directly from you. For the next 3 hours, Eliza and Whitaker took turns explaining what had happened on Zendora. The activation of the Guardians, the trial, the knowledge transfer. Eliza carefully omitted certain details, particularly the precise location of the network node in the solar system, while emphasizing the potential benefits of the technology for humanity as a whole. As they spoke, she observed the reactions around the table. Some faces showed wonder, others skepticism. A few, particularly those in military uniforms, showed thinly veiled calculation, as if already planning how to weaponize the discovery. So to summarize, said a stern-faced man whom Chun had introduced as General Harris of the Defense Coalition, you're claiming that this alien technology could allow us to travel instantly between star systems? And that the instructions for accessing this technology were somehow downloaded into your brain? That's a simplification, but essentially correct, Eliza replied coolly. And you expect us to believe this based on what, exactly? The general pressed. You've brought back no physical evidence. No samples of this alien technology. Just notebooks full of equations that we can't verify and a story about glowing guardians. Whitaker bristled. The entire research team witnessed the chambers Dr. Scott revealed, General. Chambers that had been hidden from our instruments until she showed us how to find them. That alone corroborates a significant portion of her account. But not the most extraordinary claims, countered a woman in civilian clothes who had been introduced as Dr. Ling, Chief Science Advisor to the UEG. The Wormhole Network. The Builder's Civilization. The Trial. For these, we have only Dr. Scott's word. Eliza felt a flash of frustration, but kept her voice steady. I understand your skepticism. I would feel the same in your position. That's why I'm not asking you to take my word for it. She opened one of her notebooks and pushed it toward the center of the table. These calculations will lead you to the network node hidden at the edge of our solar system. Send a mission to these coordinates, and you'll find physical evidence of everything I've told you. A murmur ran around the table as officials leaned forward to see the notebook. If this node exists, and if it can be activated, Director Chin said slowly, it would represent a tremendous strategic advantage for humanity. Eliza interrupted firmly. Not for any one nation or coalition. The Builders left this legacy for all sentient beings, not to be used as a weapon or a bargaining chip. General Harris leaned back, his expression hardening. That's a rather naive perspective, Dr. Scott. In the real world, advanced technology confers power. Power that must be responsibly controlled and directed. By whom? Whitaker asked pointedly. Your coalition? The UEG? Some committee of scientists? Who decides how this gift is used? Before Harris could respond, a new voice entered the conversation. Calm, measured, authoritative. Perhaps that's a decision we should make collectively, as a species. All heads turned toward the door, where a tall woman in the simple gray suit of the Earth Council stood. Secretary General Diaz, the highest-ranking official in the United Earth Government, regarded the room with serene confidence. Madam Secretary, Director Chin said, rising quickly. "We weren't expecting you." "Clearly," Diaz replied with a small smile. She approached the table, nodding to Eliza and Whitaker. "Doctors, your discovery has created quite a stir. I've been following the debriefing remotely and felt it was time to join in person." She took an empty seat, her presence immediately shifting the dynamics of the room. Even General Harris straightened slightly. "Dr. Scott," Diaz said, addressing Eliza directly, "I have one question that hasn't been asked yet." "Why you?" Eliza blinked, caught off guard. "I'm sorry. Why did these Guardians choose you for their trial? Out of all the members of your expedition, why was the junior archaeologist selected to receive this knowledge?" It was a good question, one Eliza had asked herself repeatedly during the journey home. "I don't think they chose me specifically," she said after a moment. "I was the one who hummed the song in the central chamber. The melody triggered their awakening. It could have been anyone who knew that specific sequence of notes. And yet it was you." Diaz pressed gently. "A coincidence? Or something more?" Eliza hesitated, then decided on honesty. "The song, the lullaby my mother sang to me, is apparently encoded in human genetic memory. The builders placed it there millions of years ago as a key of sorts. Many humans know some version of it without realizing its significance. I just happened to hum it in the right place. So anyone might have activated these Guardians," Diaz said thoughtfully. "But not everyone would have passed their trial. You did. What does that tell us about you, Dr. Scott? Or about what these builders were looking for in their inheritors?" Eliza met the Secretary General's gaze. "I believe they were looking for honesty, for self-awareness. I didn't pretend humans were perfect or that we would never misuse their technology. I acknowledged our flaws, but also our potential to grow, to learn, to become better than we are." Diaz nodded slowly, a hint of approval in her expression. "An assessment I happen to share." She turned to address the entire table. "Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a pivotal moment in human history. The discovery Dr. Scott has brought us could transform our civilization. It could also, if mishandled, lead to division, conflict, even disaster." She rose, commanding the attention of everyone present. "I propose the following course of action. First, we will assemble an international mission to the coordinates Dr. Scott has provided to verify the existence of this network node. Second, we will establish a global coalition of scientists, ethicists, and representatives from all nations to study this discovery and determine how best to proceed. And third," she looked directly at Eliza, "we will place Dr. Scott at the head of this initiative as the person best qualified to guide us through this transition." General Harris immediately objected. "Madam Secretary, with all due respect, Dr. Scott is an archaeologist, not a diplomat or a military strategist. The security implications alone are precisely why we need Dr. Scott's perspective," Diaz interrupted smoothly. "This is not a military operation, General. It is a scientific and humanitarian endeavor that will require cooperation on an unprecedented scale." The debate continued for another hour, with various factions arguing their positions. Throughout, Eliza remained silent, watching as the future she had glimpsed in the Guardian's visions began to take shape, for better or worse. When she finally spoke again, her voice cut through the competing arguments with quiet authority. "The builders faced a choice," she said, drawing all eyes back to her. "They had technology that could have made them masters of the galaxy. They could have conquered, ruled, dominated. Instead, they chose to leave that technology for others to discover when they were ready. They trusted that species like ours would eventually evolve beyond conquest, beyond domination, to a place where exploration and discovery were ends in themselves." She looked around the table, meeting each gaze in turn. "I believe we're at that threshold now. Not fully evolved, not perfect, but ready to take the next step. Ready to join something larger than ourselves. The question is, will we prove the builders right, or will we prove them wrong?" The room fell silent as her words sank in. Even General Harris had no immediate rebuttal. Secretary General Diaz broke the silence with a decisive nod. "Well said, Dr. Scott. I believe we have our answer." She turned to Director Chun. "Prepare the mission to these coordinates." and begin assembling the coalition I described. We have work to do. As the meeting adjourned, Eliza felt a strange mix of exhaustion and elation. The path ahead would not be easy, but at least they were taking the first steps. Whitaker squeezed her shoulder as they left the conference room. "You did well," he murmured. "The Guardians chose wisely." Eliza smiled tiredly. "I hope so. This is just the beginning." The next 6 months were the most intense of Eliza's life. The verification mission found exactly what she had predicted: a massive ring-shaped structure hidden in the outer solar system, powered down but intact after millions of years. Preliminary analysis confirmed it was built of materials unlike anything humans had encountered before, with technology that defied conventional understanding. As news of the discovery spread, the world reacted with a mixture of wonder, excitement, and fear. Religious leaders debated the theological implications. Scientists pored over the data Eliza provided. Military strategists developed contingency plans for various scenarios, including hostile contact with other species using the network. Through it all, Eliza worked tirelessly with the international coalition, translating her knowledge of builder technology into practical applications. Progress was faster than anyone had anticipated. The builders had indeed calibrated their gift to be just advanced enough to challenge humanity without overwhelming them. Within months, they had developed the first prototype of an interface device that could communicate with the dormant network node. Within a year, they were ready for the first activation test. The day of the test, Eliza stood in the control center of Outpost Horizon, the space station that had been constructed near the network node. Around her, the finest minds from Earth worked at various stations, monitoring systems, checking calculations, preparing for a moment that would change human history forever. Whitaker, now serving as her chief advisor, stood at her side. "Nervous?" he asked quietly. "Terrified," she admitted with a small smile. "What if it doesn't work? What if I misunderstood something crucial?" "Then we try again," Whitaker said simply. "That's the human way, isn't it? Trial and error. Persistence. And if it does work? If the node activates and we suddenly have access to the stars? Are we truly ready?" Whitaker considered this. "I don't know. But I do know that if anyone can guide us through this transition, it's you." Before Eliza could respond, Director Chen approached them. Now serving as the coalition's administrative head, she had proven to be a capable ally, keeping the various political factions in check while Eliza and her team focused on the scientific work. "We're ready to begin the activation sequence, Dr. Scott," Chen reported. "All systems nominal. The interface device is functioning within expected parameters." Eliza nodded, taking a deep breath. "Thank you, Director. Let's proceed." She moved to the central control station, where a modified version of the interface device awaited her. Based on builder technology but constructed with human materials, it looked deceptively simple. A crystalline sphere set into a console, designed to respond to specific thought patterns. As Eliza placed her hands on the sphere, she felt the familiar hum of builder knowledge stir in her mind. Without conscious thought, she began to hum the song, her mother's lullaby, the awakening song. Around the control center, heads turned at the unexpected sound, but no one interrupted. The sphere beneath her hands began to glow with a soft blue light. On the massive view screen at the front of the control center, they could see the network node responding, sections of the ancient ring lighting up in sequence. "Power readings are increasing," reported one of the technicians, voice tight with excitement. "The node is activating." Eliza continued to hum, guiding the interface with her thoughts, drawing on the knowledge the Guardians had given her. The song flowed through her, connecting her to the device, to the node, to the network that spanned the galaxy. On the view screen, the ring structure was now fully illuminated, pulsing with energy. At its center, a distortion appeared, a ripple in space-time that gradually expanded to form a stable aperture. A wormhole, connecting their solar system to another star dozens of light-years distant. The control center erupted in cheers and applause. Technicians hugged each other, scientists stared at their readings in amazement, military observers exchanged stunned glances. Even Director Chen allowed herself a broad smile. Eliza stood motionless, hands still on the sphere, mind still connected to the network. Through this connection, she suddenly sensed something unexpected, another presence, another consciousness, reaching out from the other side of the wormhole. A greeting, a welcome, a recognition. There's someone there, she whispered, loud enough for only Whitaker to hear. Another species. There. They're welcoming us to the network. Whitaker's eyes widened. Can you communicate with them? Eliza nodded slowly. I think so. The interface, it's not just for controlling the node. It's a translation system, a way for different species to understand each other. She closed her eyes, focusing on the connection. They're sending us coordinates. Other active nodes in nearby systems. Places where we can meet them. Director Chun had noticed their exchange and approached swiftly. Dr. Scott? Is everything all right? Eliza opened her eyes, a smile spreading across her face. Better than all right, Director. We're being invited to join the community. There are others out there, other species who passed their own trials, who gained access to the network, and they're offering to help us adjust, to guide our transition. Chen's expression shifted from concern to wonder. Other intelligent species? Confirmed? This is unprecedented. Not for them, Eliza said. They've been doing this for thousands of years, welcoming new species to the network as they pass their trials. She looked back at the view screen, at the stable wormhole that now connected humanity to the stars. We're just the latest arrivals. News of the successful activation and the contact with another species spread rapidly across Earth and its colonies. The reaction was everything Eliza had expected: jubilation, fear, religious fervor, scientific excitement, political maneuvering. Yet beneath it all ran a current of unity, a growing recognition that humanity now faced the universe not as divided nations, but as a single species taking its place in a larger community. Preparations began immediately for the first mission through the wormhole. The diplomatic implications alone were staggering. Humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization would not be a chance encounter, but a formal introduction to an established interstellar community. Eliza, naturally, would lead the mission. Despite attempts by various governmental and military factions to place their own representatives in charge, Secretary General Diaz had been adamant. The woman who had passed the Builder's trial would represent humanity in this historic moment. The night before the mission was scheduled to depart, Eliza stood alone in her quarters aboard Outpost Horizon, looking out at the activated network node. The massive ring glowed softly against the blackness of space, the wormhole at its center a shimmering portal to the unknown. Tomorrow, she would step through that portal, becoming the first human to travel to another star system in an instant rather than a lifetime. The first to meet the Ralteri, the species who had reached out to welcome humanity to the network. The first to see firsthand what the Builders had created, a galaxy linked not just by technology, but by shared knowledge, shared wisdom. As she contemplated this momentous step, Eliza found herself humming her mother's lullaby once more. The awakening song, the melody that had unlocked humanity's future. I wish you could see this, Mom, she whispered to the empty room. I wish you could know what your lullaby really meant. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She turned, calling, "Come in." Whitaker entered, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Sorry to disturb you, Eliza. I know you must be preparing for tomorrow." "Just thinking," she said, gesturing for him to join her at the viewport. "Hard to believe it's really happening." Whitaker stood beside her, gazing out at the network node. "I wanted to give you something. A going-away present, I suppose, though that seems rather inadequate for the occasion." He held out a small object, a simple recording device, old-fashioned compared to the advanced technology that surrounded them on the station. "What is it?" Eliza asked, taking it curiously. "During our return journey from Zendora, when you were working through the Builder knowledge, I recorded you humming that lullaby, your mother's song." Whitaker looked slightly embarrassed. I thought it should be preserved. The melody that changed everything." Eliza stared at the device, emotion welling up unexpectedly. She pressed the playback button, and the soft notes of the lullaby filled her quarters. Her own voice, humming the ancient melody that had been passed down through countless generations, encoded in human memory by beings who had lived and died millions of years before. "Thank you," she said softly, closing her hand around the recorder. "This means more than you know." Whitaker nodded, clearly pleased that his gift had been well received. "I should let you rest. Big day tomorrow." As he turned to leave, Eliza called after him, "Dr. Whitaker, Marcus." He paused, looking back at her. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. You believed me when others didn't. You supported me when it would have been easier to take control of the discovery yourself." Whitaker smiled, a rare full smile that transformed his usually serious face. "I recognized something in you, Eliza. The same thing the Guardians saw, I suspect. The best of what humanity can be." He straightened, his expression becoming more formal again. "I'll see you tomorrow, Dr. Scott. Rest well." After he left, Eliza returned to the viewport, the recorder still clutched in her hand. She played the lullaby again, letting the familiar notes wash over her. The song that had awakened the Guardians. The song that had opened the stars to humanity. The song that had been her mother's final gift to her. Tomorrow would bring challenges, discoveries, wonders. Humanity would take its first steps into a larger universe, joining a community of species united by the Builder legacy. There would be adjustments, misunderstandings, moments of tension, and moments of profound connection. The path would not always be smooth. But in this moment, watching the activated network node shimmer against the darkness, Eliza felt a profound sense of rightness. This was what the Builders had intended. This was what the Guardians had tested her for. This was the future humanity had been moving toward since the first humans looked up at the night sky and wondered what lay beyond. She hummed along with the recording, adding her voice to her voice, creating a harmony that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of space-time. The awakening song, a lullaby for an old way of being and a greeting for something new, something better. The next morning, Eliza Scott stood before the activated wormhole, leading the first human delegation to step into the network. Behind her, the crews of Outpost Horizon watched in breathless anticipation. Before her, the shimmering portal that would take her instantly to a star system dozens of light years distant, where representatives of the Ralteri waited to welcome humanity to the galactic community. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and stepped forward into humanity's future. The wormhole transit was nothing like Eliza had expected. There was no sensation of movement, no disorientation, no passage of time. One moment she was stepping through the shimmering aperture on the human side. The next, she was emerging into a vast docking bay on the other side. The bay was clearly designed for vessels and visitors from multiple species. Various docking ports of different configurations lined the walls, and the architecture itself seemed to incorporate elements that would appear familiar or comfortable to different physiologies. Waiting for them at the arrival platform were the Ralteri. Eliza's first impression was of graceful, almost feline beings. Taller than humans, with slender limbs and smooth, iridescent skin in shades of blue and purple. Their faces were elongated, with large, multifaceted eyes that shimmered with intelligence, and small, delicate mouths. They wore simple garments that seemed woven of light itself, shifting and changing with their movements. One of the Ralteri stepped forward, raising both hands in what was clearly a gesture of greeting. "Representatives of Earth," it said, its voice melodic and surprisingly easy to understand. Another function of the Builder translation system, Eliza realized. "I am Nira, liaison for new arrivals to the network. On behalf of the Ralteri and all network species, I welcome you to the community of stars." Eliza stepped forward, mirroring the gesture. "On behalf of humanity and Earth, I thank you for your welcome. I am Dr. Eliza Scott, and these are my colleagues." She introduced each member of the small delegation, scientists, diplomats, and a single military observer whose presence had been a necessary political compromise. Nira's multifaceted eyes focused on Eliza with particular interest. "You are the one who passed the Builder trial," the Ralteri said. It wasn't a question. The one who heard the song. Yes, Eliza confirmed. You know about the trials? Nira made a gesture that Eliza interpreted as affirmation. All who join the network have faced their own trial. It is the way of the builders to ensure that only those ready for the responsibility of the network may access it. The Ralteri gestured toward a wide corridor leading from the docking bay. Come, there is much to share, much to discuss. This is a significant day for your species and for the network as a whole. As the human delegation followed their host, Eliza found herself walking alongside Nira. The Ralteri moved with a fluid grace that made even the most athletic human seem clumsy by comparison. May I ask, Eliza said, how long the Ralteri have been part of the network? By your measure of time, approximately 8,000 years, Nira replied. We were among the earlier species to join, though far from the first. The oldest active members have been using the network for nearly 50,000 years. Eliza tried to comprehend the scale of this interstellar community. And how many species are part of the network? Currently active? 37, Nira said, though not all are equally engaged. Some use the network primarily for exploration or trade, while others participate more fully in the exchange of knowledge and culture. And all of them found builder temples, passed their own trials. Different species, different trials, Nira said, making that affirmative gesture again. The builders created challenges specific to each promising species they identified. The details vary, but the purpose remains the same: to assess readiness for joining the larger community. They entered a vast chamber that Eliza immediately recognized as some kind of meeting or council space. Arranged in a circle were seating areas of various designs, clearly adapted for different physiologies. Above the chamber was a magnificent dome showing a real-time view of the star system. 3 suns orbiting each other in a complex dance, with planets visible as bright points of light against the darkness. The Council of Species will convene shortly, Nira explained. Representatives from 12 network members have gathered to formally acknowledge humanity's arrival. This is a ceremonial occasion, but also practical, the beginning of your integration into the network community. I didn't realize it would be so formal, Eliza said, suddenly feeling the weight of representing her entire species. Nira made a sound that might have been laughter. The network has existed for millennia, Dr. Scott. Certain traditions have evolved. But do not be concerned. This is a welcoming, not a judgment. That part you have already passed. As they took their places in the chamber, other alien representatives began to arrive. Each was more extraordinary than the last. Some vaguely humanoid, others utterly alien in form. Some moved on limbs, others floated or glided. Some communicated through sounds, others through colors, light patterns, or electromagnetic signals that the builder translation system somehow rendered comprehensible to all. Eliza and her colleagues watched in amazement as the chamber filled with representatives of civilizations that had been exploring the stars while humans were still learning to use fire. When all were assembled, a being of living crystal, the Veth, Nira whispered to Eliza, moved to the center of the chamber. Its voice resonated through the room, translated perfectly for each species present. The Council acknowledges the arrival of a new species to the network. Humanity of Earth has found their builder temple, sung the awakening song, passed their trial, and activated their network node. As is our tradition, we formally recognize them as the 38th active member of the network community. Each representative then spoke in turn, offering welcomes and observations about this historic moment. Some spoke of trade opportunities, others of cultural exchange, others of the responsibilities that came with network access. Throughout, Eliza listened with growing wonder, recognizing that humanity was being accepted into something far greater than she had imagined, not just a transportation system, but a true interstellar civilization. When it was her turn to speak, Eliza rose, feeling the attention of beings from across the galaxy focused on her. On behalf of humanity, she began, I thank you for this welcome. We are humbled to join a community with such history, such diversity, such wisdom. We come eager to learn, to share, to grow alongside you all." She paused, then continued with words she had not planned but that felt right in this moment. The builders left their legacy not just as a gift, but as a challenge. A challenge to rise above our limitations, to see beyond our differences, to recognize that the universe belongs not to any one species, but to all who seek to understand it with wisdom and compassion. "Humanity is young," she acknowledged. "We have much to learn, but we also have something to offer, a fresh perspective, a new voice in this ancient chorus. And we promise to honor the trust the builders placed in us when they encoded the song in our memory, millions of years before we knew what it meant." As she concluded, Eliza felt a sense of rightness, of completion. The path that had begun with a simple lullaby hummed in an alien temple had led here, to this moment of connection between humanity and the wider galaxy. The ceremonial council gave way to more practical discussions. Agreements were established for initial exchanges of knowledge and resources. Protocols were set for human ships using the network. Cultural liaisons were appointed to help ease humanity's transition into the interstellar community. Through it all, Eliza found herself at the center, translating not just language but concepts, bridging the gap between human understanding and the vastly different perspectives of species who had evolved under different suns, different conditions, different histories. Days stretched into weeks as the delegation extended their stay, learning more about the network and their place within it. Earth received regular updates, and preparations began for broader human participation in this new frontier. On the final evening before their scheduled return to Earth, Eliza stood with Nira on an observation platform, watching the triple sunset of the Ralteri homeworld. The three stars descended in sequence, painting the sky in cascading colors of gold, crimson, and violet. "Your species has adapted well," Nira observed. "Better than many. The ease with which you accept new concepts, new possibilities, it is impressive." "It's what humans do," Eliza said with a small smile. "We adapt. We learn. We change." "A valuable trait for network members," Nira agreed. "There is much change ahead, much adaptation required." Eliza turned to face the Ralteri. "Before we leave tomorrow, there's something I've been wondering. The Guardians showed me visions of possible futures, some where humanity used the network wisely, others where we didn't. Was that part of your trial as well?" Nira's multifaceted eyes shimmered in the fading light. "The details differ, but the essence remains. All who would join the network must face the truth of their potential, both the light and the shadow." "And how did the Ralteri choose between those possibilities?" "As you did," Nira said simply, "with hope tempered by honesty, with recognition of our flaws and faith in our capacity to overcome them." The Ralteri made a gesture Eliza had learned indicated thoughtful reflection. It is the paradox at the heart of the trial. Only those who acknowledge their potential for failure can truly succeed. The final sun slipped below the horizon, leaving the sky awash with stars, stars that were no longer distant, unreachable points of light, but places humanity could now visit, explore, understand. "When you return to Earth," Nira said, "you will face challenges. Some will fear the changes the network brings. Some will seek to control it for their own advantage. Some will resist the idea that humanity is but one voice among many in the cosmos." "I know," Eliza said. "I saw those possibilities too. Yet you chose to awaken your node, to bring your people into the network." "Because I also saw what we could become," Eliza explained. "What we could learn, how we could grow." She turned her gaze back to the star-filled sky. "The Guardians asked me if humanity was ready. I said yes, not because we're perfect, but because we're willing to try." Nira made the Ralteri gesture of approval. "That willingness is what the builders sought in all of us. The capacity to reach beyond ourselves, to see the universe not as something to conquer, but as something to understand." As the first moon rose, casting a pearly light over the observation platform, Eliza found herself humming her mother's lullaby, the song that had awakened the Guardians, that had opened the door to the stars. To her surprise, Nira began to hum along, the Ralteri's voice blending with hers in perfect harmony. "You know it too," Eliza said, stopping in mid-melody. "All network species know some version of the song," Nira explained. "The builders made certain of that. It binds us together across the gulf of evolution, across the vastness of space and time. Different notes, different patterns, but the same fundamental sequence. The same meaning." "And what is that meaning?" Eliza asked. Nira's eyes shimmered with what might have been amusement. "That is for each species to discover for themselves, Dr. Scott. But if I were to offer my interpretation..." The Ralteri paused, considering. "It is a reminder that we are never truly alone in the universe. That connection is possible across any distance, any difference. That what separates us is less important than what unites us." As they resumed humming together, human and Ralteri voices intertwining beneath an alien sky, Eliza felt the truth of those words. The song that had been her mother's lullaby was now something more, a bridge between worlds, between species, between the past and the future. A song of awakening, not just for the Guardians, but for humanity itself. The following day, Eliza led her delegation back through the wormhole to Earth, carrying with them the formal agreements of humanity's inclusion in the network community. They returned not as explorers, but as ambassadors, representatives of Earth to the stars, and of the stars to Earth. In the months and years that followed, humanity's integration into the network progressed with remarkable speed. Additional nodes were activated, connecting Earth to a dozen star systems. Human ships ventured outward, making contact with other network species, establishing diplomatic and trade relations, exchanging knowledge and culture. And at the center of it all was Eliza Scott, the woman who had hummed an ancient lullaby in an alien temple and changed the course of human history. As humanity's chief liaison to the network, she guided her species through its first tentative steps into a larger universe, helping them navigate the complex relationships and responsibilities that came with their new status. The path was not always smooth. There were those on Earth who feared the changes, who saw the network as a threat rather than an opportunity. There were political struggles over access and control, ethical debates about the implications of advanced alien technologies, cultural conflicts as human societies adjusted to their place in a galactic community. But through it all, the song remained, a melody that connected humanity to its past and to its future among the stars. A lullaby that had put to sleep an old way of being and awakened something new, something better. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.